Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making this one sheet treat box. This measures 3 inches across, 2 inches deep, and it's 3 inches up to before the curve starts here. The box opens like so. And there's our space inside. I have also made one out of acetate, which came together very nicely, and I've just added some Halloween ephemera onto that one. The boxes do come together relatively quickly, so let's put the project together. We'll start with a piece of cardstock which is 10.5 by 8.25 inches, and this just happens to be the full width of a sheet of A4 cardstock. Along the 10.5 inch side, score at 2, 5, 7 and 10, and on the short side score at 6.25. We then want to mark at 3 inches at the top edge and the bottom edge of the cardstock and on each of the score lines going down. I'm going to line my ruler up with the 3-inch track and just mark on each of the score lines. Rotate the cardstock. I've got the tab. I'm actually working on the underside of the cardstock because I'm going to be putting pencil marks. So I've got my tab on the left hand side. I'm going to line my ruler up with the 1 3/4 inch mark down the left hand side of the scoreboard, and I'm going to score at 4 1/8 down to the 1 3/4 inch mark, 4 7/8 down, 9 1/8 down to the 1 3/4, and 9 7/8. Keep your ruler lined up with the 1 3/4 inch mark. I'm going to make a pencil mark at 1 5/8, 2 3/8, 6 5/8, and 7 3/8. So we've got 2 pencil marks within each large section, and we've got our additional score lines in the narrower sections. Move the ruler up to 3/4 inch, and now we're going to put a pencil line in between 1 5/8 and 2 3/8, and put a pencil line in between 6 5/8 and 7 3/8. Keep your piece in the scoreboard. Line your ruler up with the 4.5 inch track along the top. Make sure your ruler's running vertically. I'm going to put a pencil line in between 3/8 inch and 1 3/4 inch. Move the ruler along to 9.5 inches, and again put a pencil mark in between 3/8 inch and 1 3/4 inch. Remove the piece from your scoreboard, take your ruler, keep the tab on the left hand side, and we're going to work through each section. So we're now going to mark our additional cutting. In section 1, I'm going to join up the end of the line down to the pencil mark and do the same at the other side. I'm then going to join the end of that 3-sided section across to the pencil mark on the score line, like so. So that's going to give us this shape. I'm then going to do the same the other side, like so. I'm now going to take the end of the additional score line across to the score line, like so. Do the same this side, and I'm going to do that all the way along. Before we do our folding, etc., just to explain, these 2 tab sections are going to slot through these 2 slot sections here, and we will be cutting down this score line, down this score line, down this score line, and down this score line, and anything above that we're going to be cutting away. like so. So you might want to fold and burnish and then cut your slots, or cut your slots then fold and burnish. There's no right or wrong way. I'm going to cut my slots while my piece is completely flat. So that's our slots cut. We're now going to fold and burnish. I would recommend, if you're going to be using acetate similar to the box I showed at the beginning, that you do your cutting and then fold and burnish, because it's going to be easier for you to cut down the various sections whilst the piece is flat, with acetate in particular. I'm using cardstock, so I'm going to fold and burnish along all of the score lines. My tab is still over on the left hand side. I'm going to cut up each of the vertical score lines to the first horizontal. So we're going to create the base of the box. Rotate. I'm going to remove this small section like so, and then take a slight wedge from the two smaller glue tabs. And at the same time, I can see I've left some score line behind on this rectangular tab, so I'm just going to cut that away. That's just going to give a neater finish on the base of the box. Lift this one out of the way. Again, I can see I've left some of the score line behind. Move that out of the way, and then I'm going to take a wedge from this smaller one. Let's rotate the piece. I'm going to cut within the 1/2 inch tab up to the end of the diagonal, like so, and then just shape that. Rotate the piece. I'm going to cut down the first vertical score line down to where the two pencil lines meet, like so. Do the same here and the same here, like so. And now I'm going to work on one section at a time. So cut down the additional score line, like so. Rotate, cut up the pencil line. You can do this in whichever way you think is going to be easier for you to cut the sections away. But you can see we're basically going to be removing the sections which I've scribbled out. So if you think, oh no, I'll just find it easier to manipulate the cardstock, move the cardstock around if I do it this way, then as long as you end up with the same end shape, it's not a problem. Rub out all of any pencil marks that you might have, and then because it's my preferred look, I'm going to round off the tops of each of these. But that's just personal preference. Now, what you could do at this stage before you adhere the box together is use the outline on your patterned paper to create a template, and then just slim down the patterned paper, so it would give you at least this top funnel shape if you wanted your pattern paper to run up to here, and then you could cut it down at the edges by whatever measurement you want. So I think I'm actually going to do that particular process. I'm going to be putting a lipstick and nail varnish in mine, so I've got this paper. So what I'm going to do is, let's flip the paper over. I know what the measurements of my piece is going to be. That's easy enough to calculate. So I'm going to sit the box on the paper, because I can always cut the sides down, and just outline the shape here, like so, and then do the same on this one. So again, just get this lined up with the bottom edge of my paper. I can move it across slightly, outline the shape like so. So when I cut the pattern paper, I'll obviously cut this straight edges here to make this the same size as the side of the box, but then I'll put it in my trimmer and I'll cut 1/8 of an inch away from each side. So that's just one way you can work out the shape of your pattern paper when you've got something other than a normal rectangle. So that will be for my 2 smaller pieces, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the longer pieces. So now let's glue the box together. So we'll add glue onto the glue tab. I'm going to use tape because this is a shiny cardstock. So let's remove the backing. That's going to come across there like so, and then we can concentrate on the base. So let's add the glue onto here, fold this one over, add glue onto this one. This is the back. Fold this one down. I'm going to add glue onto the underside of this one. That comes across and that all sits nice and squarely. So I'll flip that up and go in with your ruler or your score tool and just spread the glue around. So that is effectively the box finished. So the 2 tabs, these tabs come together like so, and then these slot over the top like so, and that is effectively the box finish. Now what you can do, if you find that your tabs are not slotting in and staying, what you can do is take your scissors, and this is for instance the front tab. I'm going to cut less than 1/4 inch across and cut a slight V, and then on the opposite one I'm going to cut from the opposite side, so the V's are coming towards each other. I'm not measuring, I'm just cutting. So you should find that each section has got something to can slot in, and it should help the tabs slot down and stay together. You can also just push them down slightly and that will flatten them off and stop the bounce. There we have the box made in its entirety, and now it's just a case of adding the decoration. Here's the finished decorated box with the pattern paper on all of the sides and some simple ephemera on the front. I'm really happy with how this has come out, and I think it does have a really nice profile. I'll just bring in the Halloween box which I made previously, and I think they're a great size treat box or indeed gift box. So there we have today's 1 sheet project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.